Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in another of my wonderful interviews. Now, as you know, on the channel, we've had numerous people who are talking about law, God's law, natural law, common law, goodness knows what is law, legal stuff, acts and statutes. It's so much, it's a bit overwhelming, isn't it? And right at the beginning of my little journey, I was sent this very complicated, well, it seemed complicated at the time, document that basically told me that everything to do with acts and statutes and Parliament, MPs and all that was a whole load of nonsense. And it was called the Baron David Ward Affidavit. And at the time, I didn't really understand what it was, but a number of people have quoted it. And today I'm going to get to the bottom of it, because it does seem that it could be the answer to all our problems, because we've been led down so many blind avenues, and we believe what these people have been telling us, and actually we don't need to unless we've consented or agreed. So I'm very thrilled today to not only tell you that law doesn't exist, but also to bring to the show a lovely lady full of energy called Kirsty, who is an advocate of the Baron David Ward Affidavit. And she joins me now. Hello, Kirsty.
Hi.
How are
Thank
you?
you for having us. We're good, thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you on. It's great that you're full of energy, because we need that sometimes to get through the lawful stuff, so that we
Yeah,
can
yeah.
understand what it's about. Because otherwise it can be a very dry and
It's
dreary
very
subject.
overwhelming and it can be very intimidating as well. The amount of people that come through our groups and everything, and it's they've got so much fear because of what can happen to them if they don't comply. And
Yes.
I have to
Um,
say,
uh,
I love doing what we do. I really do. I get such a thrill from it. It's an amazing journey. It's
Fantastic,
yeah,
brilliant. Well, let's start, because I mean we're going to sort of explore what it means.
yeah.
This Baron David Ward Affidavit. I also want to know who he was or is. I don't know if he's still around. And also what. Let's start with what an affidavit is, for those people who may have heard the term bandied about but don't really know what it actually is.
Okay, so an affidavit is a sworn declaration of truth. It's your truth. And for it to not be truth, it requires someone else to then present their own affidavit of truth on a point by point rebuttal, basically discrediting what you've said. It needs to have evidence. It can't just be like, this is a black cat. No, it's not. It's a grey one because I said so. It's not
Right,
an opinion based thing, it is fact. Um,
right.
so the Baron David Ward created this affidavit um, in 2015. It went on public record on the 20th day of March 2015, and it's been unrebutted ever since. We've sent it to every single one of the 657 MPs in office, and every single one of us has an agreement that stands as fact. There is no government. It does not exist. HM Parliament and Government PLC is nothing more than a company. Every single company is nothing more than an act of registration. So it does not exist. It's a thing. It's just an act of registration. It's of no material substance. So it's literally like every other act of registration. If you go on Companies House, it will show you clear as day there. Every council, every police, HM Parliament and Government, PLC, even the referendum, all of it. It's all companies. Every single part of it is a company.
Yes, I
I've
mean,
got,
I do know that myself, because I had just written to my borough council, and I had to I thought I'll just check and see if there's a Dun and Bradbury number. Bang,
yeah,
there it
yeah,
was.
yeah,
So in that, I was able to quote to them and say, well, by the way, you are a
yeah.
for-profit company, and there's your number, just in case you didn't know.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of
Uh,
them they don't know. All they know is how to obey their good little orders. That's it.
yes,
All of them. They just follow out their obedient little orders. That's it. They don't care that their law has no standing in fact because it's nothing more than company policy. It's
right.
for anyone on public payroll. If you're on public payroll, the company policy adheres to you. If you're not on public payroll and when you take your uniform off, it no longer adheres to you. So even the police, when you come home and you take your uniform off, it no longer applies to you. It's nothing to do with the regular people. It's a bunch of criminals enforcing their company policy onto everybody else, using fear and coercion to get us to all obey.
Yes, and it does seem like the courts are on their side as well.
Of course, the court is in the sub office, so nothing more than a company janitor.
Right.
They're literally the lowest in the office. So no judge is ever going to go against its own boss, because
Yes.
they've all sworn this oath to the Bar Guild to protect the state. That's all they care about, is the state. Again, if you look at Chandran Kakouthas's um, definition of a state, which you will find in Exhibit C in the affidavit, it says that the state is, again, it's like a company. It's not of any material substance. It doesn't exist. It's an it. It
It's
cannot
yeah.
do anything. It's men and women that are, again, following out their their criminal orders.
Yes, because they wouldn't accept. I mean, it wouldn't. I mean, as a concept, you've got this ethereal concept of corporations or businesses or legal matters, but it takes men and women to actually do something to make it work. Otherwise,
Yeah,
it's just floating about in the ether as nothing, kind of. So who is and who was? I don't know if he's still around. Baron David Ward.
unfortunately, he's not. He passed away in May 2021, so he's no longer here. But there's a number of us that are still carrying on his work, and his work is getting out there, and so many more people are now coming over to the facts, and we're holding these criminals accountable, and it's
And so
literally a life-changing journey.
and I know you said that in the email to me, so I want to find out
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that. So how did it come about that he wrote his truth, his affidavit? What was the
But like I
circumstance?
said, it all started in 2013 with a PCN fine. He didn't challenge the actual PCN. What he challenged was his obligation to stand under the Traffic Management Act. With a little bit of backwards and forwards, it was then declared from the adjudicator's office no contest. He did not have any obligation to stand underneath the Act, which then sent him on a whole journey of, it was a very in-depth journey as well. He had many meetings with like barristers, lawyers, all kinds of people to get this affidavit perfected, really. And then the first 2 pages is the public decree, which means that anyone in the whole world can use it. It doesn't matter if you're from the UK or not. Literally anyone in the whole world can use this affidavit. Um,
Wow. So how would you use it then? So let's say, I don't know. I mean, can you presumably you could use it against the council
You
tax,
can use
against
it against
others,
anything. Any
right?
single claimant making a claim against you, so you have to adhere to this demand of payment. You have to adhere to this act or statute. You have to obey anything, really. The affidavit will work for it. So basically, you send the affidavit. As soon as you've sent the affidavit, they are now on legal notice. They have an obligation to provide the material evidence of a wet ink signature where you and your principal legal embodiment, which is your name, your straw man, whatever you want to call it, legal fiction, where you have given your legal consent to be governed, because a legislative rule can only be given the force of law by the consent of the governed. That word by creates a legal dependency. That legal dependency has never been fulfilled. So these contracts of us giving our power of attorney away to HM Parliament and Government PLC, agreeing to be governed, would be massively thick. You would have to have your wet ink signature next to every single one of the 8 million acts and statutes where you have agreed to be governed under every single one of them. It doesn't
Yes.
exist.
No. Good. Well, I certainly haven't spent 4 years trying to sign every one of those. Can you imagine how long it would be reading it through and then deciding whether I agree it? No, yeah, okay, I
Yeah,
agree to.
yeah.
It'd be a nightmare.
Also, material evidence can't be thrown away. So we'd have to sign this every 4 years, as well as for every new MP or pretend MP, PM, sorry, that they get in, every Prime Minister. Um, and like I
So
said, they can't throw it away. So there would be buildings all over the world with all of these massive contracts where we've all given our consent to be governed.
Yes. So this is kind of the thing about jurisdiction, handing over your jurisdiction. Well, okay, I agree to all of this, therefore I will be governed. Is that would that? I mean, we've got an election coming up. My sort of attitude is I don't want anything to do with it because I'm not going to. I'm going to send back the polling card, get off the register, and say I'm not part of your funny game.
It's all a belief at the end of the day. All of it is nothing more than a belief. If you go to Exhibit H, it says about the hypocrisy of a secret ballot, however you call it. So basically, putting an X in a box is not your consent to be governed. It has to be in the form of a contract. A contract is only an enforceable contract with a wet ink signature from every party involved, an agreement between every party involved, and full disclosure. If there's no full disclosure, the contract is nil and void from the off. So
right.
all of
So
this
how do you
voting
enforce? How do you enforce it then? But I mean,
you
there you
have
are.
to know how to enforce it. This is the thing. This is what a lot of people will say. It doesn't work. It doesn't. It very much does work. I have a lot of first-hand knowledge on how much this works, but you have to know how to do it. You have to know how to articulate it. The articulation is very important. So obviously it is a 64-page document. It is in depth. It is all about reprogramming ourselves to know the facts rather than the indoctrination that we've been believed to believe.
I mean, a lot of people at the moment will be getting summonses for council tax because they're pushing back and thinking, I've watched programs where people say it's not a legal requirement. It's this
everything is fraud. Every single demand of payment outside of a pre-existing contractual agreements and in compliance with the Bill of Exchange 1882 is fraud right from the off, as well as the fact that they are racketeering and profiting through deception. It's all fraud upon fraud upon fraud, nothing but fraud. So we hold every single claimant accountable via a securitized lien, which is a 6-week process where we're basically saying to them, we want the material evidence of the 67.5 million wet ink signatures from the people in the UK giving their consent to be governed. When you cannot provide this now becomes a legally binding tacit agreement. So over a 6-week period, at week 3, this is now a legally binding tacit agreement to lack of the following. You can't provide the evidence that we're asking for. If you're a legitimate government, you'll be able to provide the material evidence of what we're asking for. By week 4, this is where we lay out the charges. So they're charged £5 million per claim, per malfeasance in a public office, per fraud by misrepresentation, and then per willful and belligerent acts of terrorism. So they're all on public record for everyone to see. Again, when they're served the securitized lien, they have an obligation to step down, but they don't. They carry on with their racketeering.
So I mean, I suppose that's the kind of the point, isn't it? Because even if it's true, and it will, as you say, and it sounds absolutely as it ought to be, that everything should be agreed and nobody, who's got the right to...
Legal is by agreement only,
Right. But if that's the case, how is it that these people still exist, that they haven't stepped down?
Terrorists are going to be terrorists and they need our fear. So with everyone being scared, everyone's obedient. When everyone's obedient, this mess just continues. It doesn't end because everyone's too scared to put a stop to it. When everyone says no, what can they do? They're not funded anymore because no one's conspiring with the fraudulent gas, electric, TV license, water, taxes, all of it. No one's doing any of that. So they stop getting funded and then they
But
isn't
there enough? I mean, still, there's not that many people fighting it. I mean, a large number are becoming slowly aware of it, but not enough, one could argue, and say that most people that you meet in the street would just go, "What are you talking about? You know,
Yeah.
this is of course their government. Of course I
Yeah.
pay my council tax. Of course I pay my gas. You
Yeah.
know, you'd be it would be fraudulent not to, not you
Yeah.
know, because they don't understand. So. And of course they have the army, they have the police, they have the enforcement officers, they have all the bully boys and the uniforms and the costumes
All
and all their
to
bits
scare us. Yeah.
to scare us. But so
Yeah.
how is it that I mean, you know, I know that many people watching this, and I've had people saying, look, we've had them at the door. I mean, I had them at my door. My
I've
partner's
had over
them.
20 different bailiff companies. I've had 6 of them at my door. They are now too scared to come anywhere near my property. The last one, the 6th one, he sat in his car with his car running, and he got a child to run up to my front door, post the evidence of fraud through my front door, run away, and he drove off so quick that I
So
couldn't
what did
even get to the front door.
right? So how have you got to that position? Because most people are going, oh my God, there's somebody at the door.
Yeah, I used to be like that. So before I found this group, I was being hounded by about 8 different bailiff companies, all for PCN fines. Literally every single one of them was a PCN. Well, it's not a fine, but I say fine. But yeah, they literally had me absolutely terrified. I'm a single mum. I don't have a partner in the house to help protect me and my kids. I don't have any dogs to help protect me or anything like that. Some of the time, they've got me so overwhelmed and so scared that I was hiding in my pantry, telling the kids that don't make a sound, because if they hear us in the house, I don't know what they can do. Now I've got my notice of removal with implied rights of access on my front door. So they know as soon as they come to my property, you have now stepped out of whatever obedient order your job has told you to do, and now you're trespassing. Now you're in very dangerous territory, and
I mean,
their
so
orders cannot save them.
so my partner had that on her property, but yet they came on. They refused to leave. The police were there,
Page
aiding and abetting.
62 from the affidavit from Exhibit G.
Well, this was one that just sort of said, you know, your rights
Yeah, a
are
lot of this common law stuff, they know that you can't make a demand for payment outside of a pre-existing contractual agreement. So the common law stuff, it doesn't work, unfortunately. If it was going to work, it would work for absolutely everyone in the world, just like this affidavit does. But the fact that it only works for a very, very small select few just shows it doesn't work. It's not for us. When you go into the common law stuff, you're playing their game. That's their company policy. You don't need to play their game and play into their little playground. You step out of it. I have no obligation to play your game. It's nothing to do with me. So
so
just educate them. That's what I
yes.
do. Every single demand of payment outside of a pre-existing contract or in compliance with the bill of exchange is fraud. That is a fact. Your obedient orders may not be telling you that, but this is a fact. No one can argue with facts. You can argue with a belief, and it's your belief that law exists and that I have to adhere to whatever nonsense you're telling me. But your belief is nothing more than a belief. There's many people that believe in Santa and Jesus. Doesn't make them factual. It doesn't make it real. We're
Right.
talking about nothing but facts here. If it wasn't a fact, take it up with HM Parliament and Government PLC, because I have 657 men and women that have all agreed there is no government. Why are they on Company's House? Why are they on Dun and Bradstreet? Why ask all of these questions? At the end of the day, they're all minions just carrying out their obedient orders. And a bailiff is a self-employed agent. He only gets paid if you pay him. So
Right. Yeah. So if you don't pay him,
stay firm in the facts. At the end of the day, every single one of them is coming for the name as well. We are not a name. We have a name, but we are not a name. We represent our name. We do not stand surety as the name. So if you don't want to deal with them, just simply no one of that name living at this address. Thank you. See you later, mate. Off
and
you
that's
go.
it. And so what about? I mean, the thing that a lot of people are frightened about then is if their cars are, and in my partner's case, Julia, the car was on the drive, and they clamped it.
Pay it off,
And
remove it, clamp theirs back, do whatever you want to do. No one has a right to do anything to your property or stop you from moving about freely. Is they have no authority to go clamping your car.
even if it's
So
on the street.
it doesn't matter where it is. Doesn't it really does not matter where it is. So at the
But although
beginning of my journey, I had my car clamped. I
yeah,
spent 3.5 hours with my little arm sawing this bloody thing off because I didn't have an angle grinder. I didn't know the little trick with the little Allen key at that point. So yeah, I sat there for 3.5 hours trying to saw it off. Oh, it was absolutely exhausting. It was
I bet it
awful.
was. But you did it. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
thing. You know, you're obviously a determined woman to get
Oh,
through it.
very much so.
Yes, and you've removed your fear. But
Yeah.
I suppose what I'm trying to get to is the fact that I mean, I've had a lady who was on the show, and she had footage of her car. It was on her drive. The tow truck came and they towed the bloody thing away, and she was sitting inside it. The police pulled her out, and
So
they took the
again, terrorists are going to be terrorists, but we have to educate them. So police, their only job is to make sure that there is no breach of the peace. So you
yes,
stand there, you be quiet because you have to remain impartial. You are not an adjudicator and you're not allowed to adjudicate. So don't adjudicate. Don't try and take sides with the bailiff. If you're confused on your job, then get a sergeant down here that can teach you how to do your job, because clearly the 6 weeks worth of training that you got to be a police wasn't enough and you still don't comprehend what your job actually entitles you to do. They
and
have to just stand there and make sure there is no breach of the peace. That's it. If they
yes.
speak, again, educate them. You're not allowed to do this.
Yes. However, you say that, and only yesterday, a friend of mine put out a video of a woman who was dealing with the police. A guy wanted to dig up her garden, as I understand it, so he could cut off the electricity. And she was saying, "No, you're not going to do that. Go back and check." And he said, "Are you going to let us do this?" She said, "No." He said, "Then I'm arresting you." And he dragged her off to the police station.
This is what I mean. Terrorists will be terrorists. You have to record everything.
And
Absolutely every single encounter that you ever have with any bailiff, any single one of these criminals, record everything. And then, like I said, just keep on educating them, keep on letting them know. It would be very interesting to know if she was actually booked in, because I'm seeing it a lot recently that they'll arrest people, but they're not actually fully arresting them because they're not getting booked in. If you're not booked in at the station, you haven't been arrested. So you've
right.
literally got a terrorist that is
So could you
for
then
using
insist?
force, which is
Yes.
an act of terrorism. It's on the CPS website as well. To use force in a civil matter is a willful and belligerent act of terrorism. They need to be taught this an awful lot. Everything that comes out of our mouth needs to be this. To use force in a civil matter is a willful and belligerent act of terrorism.
Right. So
Educate them.
I so it seems to me what you're saying is, I mean, we all go to school and we get programmed. What we should be doing as people is realizing we're being run by these terrorists,
Yeah.
and being able to know exactly how to treat them, so that when
Yeah.
they come to the door, we are able confidently to stand in
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
power and say, look, you're this is what your role is. I know that,
Yes.
you know that, you are now above that rule. And in theory, really, that woman should just gone into a house so that
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
couldn't have
Absolutely.
got her. Because as soon as he was like, asking, "Are you going to do this?" you could see it was escalating, and I just thought, "Get her
I
in the
don't
house."
answer questions, and even they will say you have the right to remain silent. So I don't answer questions. I don't stand under your authority. I choose to remain silent. You don't need to conversate with them. You don't need to speak to them at all unless you're educating them. You are your highest authority. You are the highest authority. You are much higher than them. So you ask the questions. Where do you believe your authority comes from? Can you prove where your authority comes from? Things like
Yeah,
this.
And I mean, in that situation, they're going to say, "Well, the law protects me." I mean,
Okay, well, law again, law needs the material evidence. So where's the 67.5 million contracts from the men and women who have all agreed to be governed in the UK under these acts and statutes?
yes, yes. I'm just thinking back to when I was there filming for Julia, and I came up and we were filming everything, and we were asking them these questions. Where is your authority? And they said,
Hmm.
"Oh, we're police. We have the authority." It was like that's
Nope,
it. That's
they
just
don't.
enough. And
Go on
and then
company's house. You're nothing more than a company, just like
yes,
McDonald's, Tesco's, all of them.
yes. So is there redress? Can you then, we've got evidence, for example, of them aiding and abetting the bailiffs to try and
Hmm.
negotiate the thing, and they should have been just saying, "Look, watch what's going on." As you said, we're peacefully saying, "You don't have a contract. Where's the contract? Where's the writ? Where's
Yeah,
the thing of the deed of assignment? Where
yeah.
is that?" And they show you some, a Photoshop something on a bit of on an iPad or whatever, and you go, "Well, I don't know whether that's true or not. How can I
It's
how
not
can I
because it
possibly?"
needs to have a wet ink signature. Everything
Be-
revolves around these wet ink signatures. It's all nonsense. They never have a
yes.
deed of assignment either.
No. So when you're there, if it's all gone badly and your car disappears or you've had to pay or whatever it is, but you've got footage to prove that actually it was under stress and they were harassing you to do it, are you able to take them to court and say,
We
"Look,
don't ever go to court. So, like I said earlier, the court is the sub office. So, this is the lowest, literally the lowest in the company. It's nothing more than a company janitor. So it's
yeah,
like going to a cleaner rather than the CEO. We take everything to the CEO and we deal with everything in our own court, which we keep on the paper because the paper is again by agreement. It's the only thing that's legal and it's the only place that the name can exist. They're always looking for the name.
mm.
So we keep everything to our own court of record, which
but how,
is via the lien process.
but how would you address a wrong? Let's say the police
We
ignore
try
what you
not
say.
to let the wrongs get there in the first
Well,
place,
I
but if
appreciate
it
that.
does, depending on what it is, especially with a bailiff, obviously there's a lot of things. So if he puts his foot in the door, he's now out of his jurisdiction of being a bailiff. He's now crossed that line. That is
Yeah.
what they would class as illegal because it's not in
Yes.
their company policy. So things
Yes.
like that. Take it up with the bailiff company and obviously, especially if you've got footage, see what can be done. But we try not to let things ever get to these kind of situations. Again, if they've stolen your car, you've got things like a habeas corpus where you can go in. It's for an illegal detainment. So go in with that, try get it back. Um, don't pay, don't ever give over your cash because you won't get it back.
No.
Um,
No. Okay.
stand firm
So
in the facts. It has to have a contract. So show me the contract. Where is my signature? Where you can prove for this demand of payment? It
yeah,
won't exist.
right. I mean, it does seem to me that if you don't open the door, they can't do anything.
No, they can't. They can't.
Now, so let me. So, what if they're court bailiffs? If they are bailiffs of the court and they have a wet ink signature from a
They won't ever
magistrate,
have a wet ink signature because no
even
judge will ever take liability.
right. Oh, okay. So how is it that people are being removed out of their houses? I mean, if YouTube is awash. Sadly, it's awash of all the negative
Remember
stories.
what I said about fear? Every single thing that this matrix is built on is off of our fear and our obedience. That's it. So
Mm,
when you've got people that are recording the fact that they're literally forcing this old lady out of their house and now she's homeless and all of this lot, that's now installing that fear into so many other people. And because they don't know the facts, they don't know how to articulate to these terrorists, they're now going down the same problem. And then it's again, it's a dominoes effect. You're now installing that fear into each of these people, which is why I
even
love doing what we do, because We teach people to take back their power and stand firm in the facts, stand in their power, and don't give terrorists any fear. You've got nothing to fear. All they want is your fear. If you
Right.
don't give it, they have absolutely nothing.
So okay. So let's just go through the sort of general idea of how it works. So here am I. I've got a bill for something that somebody said, "Oh, you've infringed us. You've driven on the road. You've breathed air, clean air instead of the chemtrailed air. You've
Yeah,
violated something." I go, "Oh, crikey, have I? I'm sorry about that. I'm just a living man." And I've got a piece of paper that says, "We demand you cough up, or we'll send the boys in." What's the first thing that you have to do?
so when you come into our groups, the first step is to read and understand the affidavit. That is the most imperative thing out of everything that we do, because obviously everyone needs to understand what they're sending. These are serious legal documentations that we are sending. So once you've read and understood the affidavit, um, it's better to start off with the MPs and get the affidavit sent off to all of the MPs. So then you get that formal agreement that there is no government. If it's too overwhelming, just get cracking on straight on with the lien and then come back to that at another point. So, like I said earlier, as soon as you send that affidavit, they are now on legal notice. And then we've got a 6 week process of where we send one letter every 7 day intervals. By week 6, this is now a legally binding contractual agreement. This is the only contract that exists. So it doesn't matter who's coming where, with what fancy piece of paper, what act or legislation they're waving about, what bit of paper they're waving about, whatever they're demanding. We've used their letter of fraud that they've sent us and we've picked out the claims. So a claim is where they're telling you that you have to adhere to something. So you have to make this payment. You have to adhere to this act or statute. Whatever it is, we've picked out all of the claims and now we've highlighted it in our letters. And then, obviously, like I said, by the end of the 6 weeks, that is now a legally binding contractual agreement. And it is the only contract that exists. Men and women cannot contract with companies. So, how does a council that is of no material substance suddenly grow a brain and an arm and then write to you, giving you all of these threats that you have to adhere to something? It's not. It's men and women hiding behind an act of registration using the thing that they are the council when they're not the council, they're representing a council. It's just, again, no one's actually competent in anything that they do. They're all brain dead, monkey see, monkey do. They just follow their orders. That's it. Which is why
And
I'm forever saying we have to educate them. They're the ones
yes,
being shafted 92% tax just like the rest of us.
right, yeah, no, well, that makes sense, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
they're pawns of the same problem.
Mm-hmm.
So do you change the affidavit as it is? I mean, it's
No.
in Baron. You don't change the name,
No,
and
the
because you're
affidavit
not
stays
claiming to
exactly how it
be
is.
you're not claiming to be Baron David Ward.
No, but like I said, them first 2 pages is a public decree. So that makes it available for anyone in the whole world to be able to use exactly how it is. He did have dyslexia, so there are a couple of spelling mistakes in there. It doesn't change the validity of the affidavit. It's
So you,
been on public record for over 9 years now, and it stands as fact. It's been agreed as fact time and time and time and time again. So,
and
yeah,
and and so would you put a covering letter with it to say,
it's up to you. You can go straight in with letter one of the lien process. You can send the affidavit with a little short cover letter and just let them know whatever it is.
"Law doesn't exist and this proves it"? Bang.
Well, basically, yeah, law has no standing in fact. I love to use that bit all of the time because that's all they ever come back with. You have an obligation under this law. Well, hang on a minute, because law has no standing in fact. So we're not talking about law, we're talking about facts, and facts are law has no basis. It doesn't exist. So they have an obligation to provide a point by point rebuttal within 48 hours. You
And
can
they
give
can't.
anything between 48 hours and 28 days, depending how much time you need to learn the lien process. Everything needs to be followed up with a lien, because it's all
Right.
well and good sending the affidavit, but they don't care. They're terrorists, and they
So
will
what?
keep on being terrorists.
So what? Just describe what a lien is for people who are not sure
The
what that
lien
is.
is the contract. So it's a 6 week process of sending one letter every 7 day intervals, where we're literally, like I said earlier, you pick out your claims from the letter that they've sent you. You use that to say now you have an obligation of service to provide the material evidence of a wet ink signature, where I have to adhere to this, this, and this, what you've claimed.
So in the case of the council tax, where they keep going back to the financial, whatever it is, the Act of
Financial regulations, conduct
1992 or whatever it
authority
is.
nonsense. Yeah,
Yeah. So what? I mean, they'll just say, well, this is
that's
it. This is
a claim.
it.
No one's ever agreed to be governed under any act or statute, so that's a claim. The account number, that's a claim. Um, However much the figure for the demand of payment is, that's a claim. If they threaten any legal action, so bailiff, that's a claim. Um, Sometimes it can be a willful stated intent. So if they're threatening to come and remove your goods, only a shop has goods. We do not have goods in our home. We have personal property. So that's theft. You're aiding, abetting theft, fraud, and deception. So that will be a willful stated intent, because they're not just making a claim, they're making a threat that if you don't abide to their criminal demands, they're going to use even more force and terrorism, basically. So,
Yes.
yeah, we highlight them all. And then, like I said, after week 3, that's now a legally binding tacit agreement. On week 4, that's the opportunity to resolve, where we lay out the charges for their claims. Week 5 is the notice of default. And then week 6, we don't actually send week 6 on its own. This is now the actual lien. So a lien is all of them letters now all bound together with the Baron's affidavit. So it starts with your title page, and then you've got letter 6. It will go into Exhibit A, which will be your material evidence, and then letters 1, 2, 3, Exhibit B, letters 4, 5, and then we've got a notifications page. So this is um, all of the newspapers or bailiffs or police, whoever it is that we're sending it to let them know that we have this agreement. We send it to all of them in your little notifications page, and then you've got Exhibit C and then the Baron's affidavit. So that whole thing will now be your lien.
So and that's a lot of. And is that all printed out?
We do everything by email. Once it's an actual lien, yes, you send it by hard copy, because you need to emboss it. So you've
Right.
got your crest and seal on it, and then you emboss it. On week 6, you emboss your seal onto the paper version, and then you send it off.
So if you've got a £15 PCN for something and you haven't paid it, you may have spent that on the paper and the ink to print all
Well,
this lot
no,
out.
we've got a good discount. So if we go through Print Pond, we get 5% off. Um, and then obviously for 2 liens, it's about 15 quid for two. But as much as you say it's like 15 quid for a PCN, so would you rather pay £15 to conspire with fraud? That makes you just as culpable of the fraud by giving your cash to
Yeah.
criminals, or would you rather spend the 15 quid holding them accountable? The choice is yours. No one's
Well,
telling
of
you.
course. No, I appreciate that. And the more people that do it is putting them on notice, and we see the dam start to fall apart, which is the most important. Because at some point, there must come a time where enough people are doing it that they can't get away with it anymore,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they know the amount of paperwork that they'll get.
There is
And
a
the,
lot of people doing it now. There really is. I mean, we've got 99 MPs stepping down. We've got CEOs stepping down all of the time. It's we're making a lot of difference now. It's
yes.
just,
Tell,
as
tell
we all
me.
know, there's strength in numbers, isn't there? So if
Yes.
we can get a lot more people on board, it closes down a lot quicker.
You mentioned a crest and something else. I can't remember what it was now.
Your crest and seal. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
it's in compliance with the Companies Act, which you'll find in Exhibit D. So they never adhere to the Companies Act ever. Every single company has an obligation to stand under the Companies Act, which they never do.
And so the
Um,
Companies Act says what you've got to have a crest and a seal. Where would you get one of those?
you create it. So if you're quite technical or quite arts and craftsy, you can draw it yourself. If not, we've got a couple of members that can do it for you. I personally paid to have mine done. Like I said, I had too much going on. I'd
Hmm.
literally just pulled my little one out for home education and they was threatening me with that. And then I had like 8 different bailiff companies. I came here very overwhelmed, very no, I need the answers yesterday. I don't have time to really learn too much. I need you to just literally force this information into me. And
And so I mean, a crest is. I mean, you just create anything. So could I just have a bald head and glasses like a
you
logo?
can have whatever you want as long as it's got your house of and then your surname, keeper of the keys, and attorney general. Have whatever you like. As long as
Oh,
it's got
okay.
them 3 things on it, do
Right.
whatever you want.
Okay. Keeper of the. I'm gonna have to write that down. What have we got to have? The keeper of the keys.
So house of and then your surname,
House of. Yeah.
and then keeper of
Surname.
the keys, and then
Keeper.
attorney general.
And that's you.
Yeah,
And
yeah, we are all attorney generals. Every single one of us is an attorney general. We just
okay.
don't know it. And then
Yeah.
by entering into court, we're giving our power of attorney away to someone to represent us that doesn't care if we succeed or not.
And the seal. Where would you get obviously you're not talking about a seal out the sea that goes like this.
No,
Oink,
so
oink.
the crest goes at the top of your paperwork, the seal
Yeah.
goes at the bottom. So
And is that a
again, that's your
wax?
digital signature.
Oh right, that's not a wax seal with a bit of
So when
ribbon
you
and.
emboss it, yeah. So like I said earlier about when you come to week 6 and you actually emboss your paperwork. So that will be your seal on a gold wafer and then you stamp it on and then put it on your paperwork.
Right. Wow. I mean, it must be very impressive when they get those things and go, "Oh crikey, look at this."
Yeah.
The
It does
house.
look very professional. We are the professionals. They don't know how to be professional.
Exactly. So presumably, the Baron David Ward affidavit is available for people to download.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. 64 pages. It's on all of our groups. You can find it on bdwfacts.com.
I'm going to get you to send me, if you wouldn't mind, send me the links, and then I can put them in
Yeah,
in the
absolutely. Yeah.
description, and people can. And so to go on your things, does it take much time or money or anything like that? How
No
does it
money.
work?
We don't charge anything for anything. Um, so all we really ask is for people to be dedicated into the learning. That's it.
Yeah.
We've got so much time for anyone that's willing to learn. So we travel the UK, doing events where we speak about this. We help people to understand, help people to learn. We give like a little bit of our own success stories to like motivate people, kind of thing. We've got Zooms 4 times a week. So for
Wow.
people starting out on the lean process, we've got the templates. You can get your letters checked over on the Zooms. Literally, there is so much support that you have to do the reading. We can't
Yes.
read and
No.
make
No.
people learn for them. So as long as they're even if they don't fully understand it, it doesn't matter. As long as you've made the attempt to read and understand it, there's so much support that we can give you to help you understand. And obviously, it's also a journey.
Hmm.
No one's expecting you to read this one time and be like, oh, wow, I now know every single word in the whole of this 64-page document, and now I'm ready to go and tackle the whole thing. We understand we've all been indoctrinated, we've all been lied to, we've all believed whatever it is that we've believed, and it's a journey.
Yeah.
It's not a race. No one can tell you how quick you have to learn something or when you need to be there. It's It's down to you. Each one of us will get to where we need to be at the exact time when we're meant to be there, really.
No, well, I mean, that's amazing amount of um, effort on
Yeah,
the team's part.
we
Yeah,
do give a lot.
but I agree that people need to understand, because if you know, so many other people would just say, well, give me the template, I'll fill it in and send it off, and they haven't understood a word of
No,
what
it's
they've
not
got.
as
No
simple as
power.
that.
No.
Yeah.
Then and they can't. Then if somebody comes to the door, they have no power. They
That's
don't
why
know what
so
they.
many people say that this doesn't work because it's they've sent the affidavit and they've been ignored. Well,
Mm,
you haven't followed the process and you don't know how to articulate it. So I had a lot of first-hand knowledge with this at the beginning of my journey. Like I said, my car got clamped by the bailiff. I sat there for 3 hours, 3.5 hours, whatever it was, and I sawed this bloody thing off. I tried to let the air out of the tire first. So I had a flat tire. Like literally 10 minutes later, police came along with their flashing blue lights and everything, pulled me over and stole my car. I didn't really know how to articulate it at that time. I had started the lean process and I was on week 4 with Nick Tubbs, who's the CEO of Cedar Group. But I didn't fully understand how to articulate it, but that experience taught me the articulation is so crucial. And then literally every day I just go through like little role plays in my head of what I can say and getting better with each time and things like this. It's a whole journey. We're all learning, we're all doing our best. And ultimately, like I always say to my kids, you don't know how to get something right until you mess up and do it wrong first.
yeah.
So sometimes we gotta get it wrong.
Yes.
It's
No, I totally agree. If you learn quicker,
yeah,
certainly.
yeah,
If you
yeah.
make mistakes, we all make mistakes. You know, even on
Exactly.
painting.
It's
Try and
part
draw a
of being
circle.
who we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. So people can find out who you are. That, as you say, it's all free. You dedicated team. You give all your time. It's absolutely brilliant. And go away and do the reading. I'll leave people to go to the description so they can get the links that you're going to
That'd be
send me.
great. Yeah.
It's so. Thank you so much for going through it with me, Kirsty. That was really
No worries
interesting.
at all.
So nothing to be frightened of, ladies and gentlemen. You know, bullies will
It's
be bullies.
exciting.
Come and get it. Come and get
Yeah.
it. But the more you see, the thing is, I mean, the more people, as you say, that do begin to do this, the dam will crack, and
Yeah.
they, you know, all their nonsense, their mandated
Yeah.
jabs, their fear mongering, all of
Yeah.
this sort of stuff. I'm not in your world. You know, I
Exactly
don't.
that.
It's a,
Even without the bailiffs and everything, it's a little bit different. But a couple of months ago, my cat needed to have her leg amputated, and they told me that it was a lawful requirement that my cat was microchipped. I said, I'm not doing it. I don't
mm,
consent. No, thank you. Just deal with her leg. So then they said that they had to hole punch her ear to prove that I'd refused, basically. So I said to them, if you microchip my cat or cut my cat's ear, you're going to suffer some very serious legal consequences that no solicitor and no judge will be able to help you get out of. This has now been your warning. They didn't touch my cat. They
yeah.
dealt with her leg and that was it.
Oh, well
So
done. So yeah,
literally,
just
it
that
can work
knowledge.
with so much. It really can. Even things that you might not think is relevant, it's still break down the facts. I use this in almost everyday life for everything. And it's an amazing journey. It really is. It might seem very overwhelming at the start, especially when you look at 64 pages. I've got
Yes.
ASD and ADHD, so it was I'm never going to get that. I've never read anything in my life before. So reading 64 pages, it was straight away. I'd written it off, but
You've
first
got there.
time read, it was like, this is literally the golden ticket. This is the connection of all of these different puzzles that I've been looking for. And it was that I found the answer that I've spent like 4 years trying to find. And
And there it is. Brilliant stuff.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and telling us
Thank
all
you for
about it.
having me, darling. I'm
It's
really
a pleasure.
happy.
Oh, good. Well, Brilliant stuff. Well, there we are, ladies and gentlemen. Make of that what you will. Go and check out the links and go and download the affidavit and give it a good read. And it might be that you have to read it several times to sort of get it, but I shall certainly be revisiting it myself. But in the meantime, big thanks to Kirsty for coming on. I'll be back with more monologues, of course, and more wonderful guests. Till next time, from Kirsty and I, thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Bye.